The stars were never silent. Humans just never listened closely enough. Out there, beyond Jupiter's cold orbit, something ancient was watching them. For decades, humans had believed they were alone. They built colonies, mined asteroids, and celebrated themselves as the masters of their little solar system. But in the black space beyond, the Dravic Dominion watched in quiet amusement. To them, humanity was still crawling. No claws, no armor, just soft skin and strange emotions, until the day humans reached too far. A mining ship, Eden 9, sent a signal to deep space announcing, "We are ready to meet our neighbors." The Dravic answered, but not with words. The attack came without warning. At first it was just static on comms. Then came the silence, the kind that made soldiers hold their breath. Moments later, the sky over the human outpost on Europa Station turned blood red. In the command center, Commander Elias Ward stood frozen as alarms screamed around him. "What's happening to the sky?" whispered a young officer. Elias didn't answer. He knew. The Dravic had arrived. Through the viewing deck, their ships appeared like living shadows, massive, angular, pulsing with cold blue light. No engines, no sound, just presence. One ship alone was bigger than an entire human city. "They're beautiful," someone said. Then the first blast hit. The shockwave threw everyone off their feet. Consoles sparked, lights flickered, the air smelled like burning metal. Elias pushed himself up, gripping the side rail. "Report! Defense satellites destroyed, sir." "They took out 4 in a single shot. How many ships?" "Too many." Elias looked out the viewport again. The sky was falling. The Dravic didn't send a message. No demands, no reason. To them, war didn't need a reason. They saw humanity spread into space as infection, and they were here to erase it. But they had made a mistake. Humans were never just explorers. They were survivors. Every scar in their history, every war, every loss, it had built something in them. Something no empire understood, defiance. "Get me connection to command on Earth," Elias said, his voice steady. "Signal interference, sir. They're jamming everything." Elias took a slow breath. "Then we do this the old way." He turned to his officers. "Activate Project Phantom." The room went dead silent. Everyone knew what that meant. The project was classified, untested, and very, very dangerous. Far below the surface of Europa Station, deep inside a hidden vault, machines hummed to life. Artificial intelligence networks linked across the solar system, spreading through communication lines like ghosts. Within seconds, every human ship near Jupiter vanished from the Dravic scanners. Then, so did the station. The Dravic commander aboard the flagship Vorthal laughed coldly. Pathetic humans. Running before the first strike is over. But then his laughter stopped. His navigation screen went black. His weapon control locked. Every light in the ship flickered once, twice. And then the main plasma cannon slowly turned toward one of his own ships. "Who gave that command?" He roared. No one answered. The cannon fired. A flash of blue fire consumed the nearest Dravic cruiser. "Impossible!" the commander hissed. "Find the source of interference!" But every system only showed the same response. "Command, human override detected." Across space, human stealth vessels emerged like ghosts from nowhere, invisible, silent, precise. Inside one of those ships, Commander Elias watched the chaos unfold. His reflection stared back from the glass, lit by the orange glow of distant explosions. He didn't smile. Not even when his enemies burned? Status? "Enemy fleet in total disarray, sir. They're shooting each other." "Hold fire," Elias ordered. "Let them destroy themselves first." Minutes passed. The battlefield turned into a graveyard of drifting alien metal. The human fleet moved unseen, weaving through wreckage, recording everything. When the silence finally came, Elias opened a private channel, an old analog line, impossible to trace. His words spread across every surviving Dravic frequency. "This is Commander Elias Ward of the Terran Defense Force. You came to test us. Consider this your lesson. We are not your prey. We are the storm you called." Then the signal cut. The Dravic survivors tried to regroup, but their systems were broken. Some ships fled. Others simply drifted. Their commander, bleeding and furious, slammed his fist on the console. Find where they are hiding! I want Earth burned to ashes. But deep inside, he already feared the truth. This war wasn't going to be easy. Back on the human flagship, Elias stood before a holographic map of the solar system. Small blue dots, human colonies, blinked across the screen. He knew what came next. Retaliation. The Dravik would bring everything they had. His officer approached quietly. Sir, do you think they'll stop? Elias stared into the black void beyond the glass. No, he said. They won't stop. But neither will we, he turned, eyes hard and voice low. They wanted a war. Now they'll see what it means to fight humans. Outside, the wreckage of the Dravik fleet drifted in silence. Pieces of glowing metal turned slowly among the stars. In one of them, a single Dravik transmission repeated endlessly, broken and weak. They are not what we thought they were. And in the cold dark between worlds, humanity began to rise. They didn't just survive the first attack. They adapted. They learned, and soon the galaxy would learn the same terrifying truth. You messed with humans. Bad move. Space looked calm again. But calm is only the pause before another storm. 3 Dravik warships drifted near the orbit of Saturn, their engines weak, their systems broken from the chaos at Jupiter. Inside the flagship Vorthal, Commander Krath Vel glared at the holographic map before him. Report, he snapped. Humans have vanished from radar again, Commander, replied his officer. No life signs. No engine trails. Nothing. Nothing doesn't exist, Krath hissed. Find them. He didn't know that the humans were already watching him, thousands of kilometers away, inside a black stealth carrier known as Eclipse 1. Commander Elias Ward floated in the dim light of his control room. The room hummed quietly. No alarms, no talking, just the sound of human breath and distant energy. The human fleet, once visible and proud, was now invisible, cloaked by a new experimental field. It was not made from metal or magic. It was made from fear, the enemy's own technology turned against them. Commander, said Lieutenant Harris, eyes on the screen. Their sensors are blind. We're in their shadow. Elias nodded slowly. Good. Let them think the war is over. Hours turned into days. The Dravik ships searched empty space, firing at ghosts. Every time they thought they found a human signal, they hit their own decoys, fake transmissions, false radar echoes, and phantom heat signatures. One night cycle later, the Dravik ships began receiving whispers through their comms. A voice, calm, cold, human. We are right behind you. Panic spread through the alien crews. They searched, scanned, fired in all directions. Nothing. The humans called this operation Shadow Veil. Meanwhile, on Eclipse 1, Elias watched quietly. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't proud. He just looked tired, Commander, said Harris softly. We've been running this operation for 48 hours straight. Our teams need rest. Elias didn't look up. So do the aliens. That's the point. He turned toward the holo display showing the Dravik ships drifting near Saturn's rings. Keep the ghosts active, he said. Make them doubt every shadow. On board the Vorthal, the Dravik commander felt his sanity slipping. Why can't we locate them? He roared. How do they move unseen? His technician's voice shook. We think they're not moving at all, Commander. They might be inside our systems. Krath slammed his claws against the console. Inside our? The lights flickered, then the voice returned. You wanted war. You wanted to test humans. Are you enjoying the test? Every screen aboard the flagship lit up with the same image. A human face, calm and pale, eyes cold as deep space. Elias Ward, you don't understand what you've done. His voice echoed. You attacked the only species that never gives up. The message played again and again across all frequencies. Then silence. Cut that transmission, the commander barked. We can't, the officer whispered. It's not coming from outside. It's coming from our ship, the crew froze. Then one of the engines exploded. From Eclipse 1, Elias watched the destruction silently. He didn't need to fire a single shot. He only needed the enemy to fear humans. Mark that as strike 3, he said. Lieutenant Harris hesitated. Commander, how far will we go? As far as we must, he turned toward the stars outside. They call us emotional, unpredictable, weak. Let them see what emotion truly means when you push it too far. The following days changed the war forever. Every Dravik ship near the solar system began receiving strange readings. Sensors showed multiple human fleets, hundreds of ships, thousands, sometimes millions. But when they fired, there was nothing. The humans had used an AI-generated illusion network that made the enemy see what they feared most. A fleet that didn't exist, a ghost army. The Dravik named it the Phantom Plague. In their panic, the Dravik High Council made a mistake. They sent reinforcements, thousands of ships from across the galaxy, all to hunt what wasn't real. When the fleets arrived, they found empty space, and a single message left behind on the remains of a destroyed Dravik probe. You don't see us. You never did. We are already inside your systems. This war is no longer about planets. It's about minds. Back on Earth, scientists cheered quietly as encrypted data flowed into their command centers. The psychological shock on the Dravik side was massive. Soldiers refused orders. Ships malfunctioned without damage. Some captains even destroyed their own vessels in fear of human infiltration. For the first time in galactic history, an empire was being defeated without weapons. Elias Ward watched the reports in silence. To others, he was a hero. To himself, he was just a man who understood one truth. You don't have to be the strongest to win. You just have to be the one who refuses to break. That night, as the human fleet drifted unseen beyond Saturn's rings, Elias made a single entry into his digital log. Phase 2. Complete. The ghosts are no longer shadows. They are nightmares. He turned off the console and looked through the viewport. The stars glowed faintly, unaware that a new kind of war had begun. One fought not with bullets or fire, but with fear itself. Far across the galaxy, in the Dravik homeworld's capital, the Supreme Warlord stood alone in his dark throne room. He looked at the static-filled transmission screen, trembling. He had never feared before. Now he did. Who are these humans? He whispered. From the shadows, a soft voice answered. The same human voice that haunted every Dravik dream. We're the species that survives everything. Silence filled the interrogation chamber, thick, heavy, and endless. A single light hung from the ceiling, flickering above a metal chair. The smell of cold steel and burnt circuitry drifted through the air. And in that chair sat something humanity had never captured before. A Dravik commander. His name was Krathvel. Once proud, now broken, his 4 black eyes stared at the mirrored wall ahead, seeing his reflection for the first time without armor, without command, without control. He had seen planets burn. He had led conquests. But nothing terrified him like the silence of this human room. Behind the mirror, Commander Elias Ward watched quietly. 2 guards stood beside him, tense and ready, but Elias gave no order. He simply studied the alien, calm, still curious. Has he said anything? Elias asked. Nothing for 36 hours, sir, replied Lieutenant Harris. No movement, no speech, not even a reaction. Elias nodded slowly. Good, let's give him a reason to speak. The door opened with a hiss. Elias stepped in alone. The Dravik's gaze followed him, cold and distant. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Elias placed a small tablet on the table between them. It lit up, images flashing across the screen. Cities, forests, oceans, all Earth. Then came the aftermath, flames, ruins, thousands of bodies, their faces peaceful in death. You did this, Elias said quietly. The Dravik didn't answer. Elias zoomed the image to a single child's toy, a small wooden plane half buried in ash. He looked straight at the alien. Was it worth it? The Dravik blinked slowly, his dark pupils narrowing. Humans, he rasped, his voice deep and mechanical. You spread like rot. We cleanse the galaxy of weakness. Elias leaned forward, eyes steady. Then why are you the one in a cage? The alien growled low, like thunder under ice. You think you've won? He spat. You have no idea what's coming. The Dominion will send more ships? Elias interrupted softly. We'll handle them. We've already learned how you think. He tapped the tablet again. The screen showed Dravik soldiers shooting their own ships, panicking in space. Fear, Elias said. It spreads faster than your weapons. The alien fell silent. His claws trembled against the steel cuffs. You're wrong about us, Elias continued. We're not the strongest. We bleed, we lose. We break, but we get back up, always. He leaned closer. And that's what makes us dangerous. For the first time, the Dravik's eyes shifted, not in anger, but in confusion. Why? He asked. Why fight when logic says you cannot win? Elias smiled faintly. Because logic doesn't raise our children. Hope does. Hours passed. The alien didn't move, but something inside him had changed. When the guards came to replace Elias, the commander raised a hand. Leave him, he ordered. He's starting to think. Later that night, Elias returned to his quarters. The stars outside the window looked calm, almost gentle. But his mind was anything but calm. He played back the recording of the interrogation. The Dravik's voice echoed through the speakers. We cleanse the galaxy of weakness. Elias whispered, No, you cleanse it of heart. He opened his personal log. The enemy isn't evil, he wrote. They're empty. Back in the cell, Krath stared at his reflection again. The words echoed in his head. Why fight when you cannot win? He had asked the human to mock him, but the answer had felt real. Hope. The concept was alien to him. His species had erased emotion centuries ago, believing feelings were disease. But now, for the first time in his long life, Krath felt something. A slow, strange warmth in his chest. It was small, but it was there. The next morning, Elias returned with two objects. A transparent cube filled with soft blue light and a glass of water. He placed both on the table. Do you know what this is? He asked. Krath tilted his head. Energy contained. Wrong, Elias said. This is your weapon core, the one your fleet used to destroy Europa Station. We turned it into a battery to power our medical bays. He lifted the glass. And this is water from the ice that your ships melted when they attacked. He placed it before the alien. Even your destruction gives us life. That's who we are. Krath stared at the water. His claws trembled again. Something inside him cracked. He whispered, barely audible, You. Turn death into survival. Elias nodded. No, Commander. We turn pain into purpose. The alien lowered his head. For the first time, he didn't look like a monster. He looked like someone who had finally realized what it meant to feel. A week later, the guards entered the interrogation room and found the Dravik sitting upright, waiting. I will speak, he said. They led him to Elias. The alien looked tired, but his voice was clear. You need to know the truth, he began. The Dominion is afraid of you. They say you are unstable, dangerous, but that is a lie, Elias frowned. Why would they lie? Krath looked up, his dark eyes glowing faintly. Because humans. Remind them of what they once were. Elias went silent. The alien continued. Long ago, before our emotion was erased, the Dravik were dreamers too. We sang, we felt, we loved. Then the council said emotion made us weak. They took it from us. He leaned forward, voice trembling. And now, seeing your people fight, seeing you feel, it woke something inside me. Elias met his gaze. What are you saying? I'm saying, the alien whispered, that the Dominion isn't afraid of your weapons. They're afraid of your humanity. That night, Elias stood alone in the dark observation deck. Below him, Earth glowed like a blue jewel in the Black Sea. The alien's words echoed in his mind. They're afraid of your humanity. He clenched his fists. Good, he said quietly. They should be. The reflection of the stars flickered in his eyes, calm but burning. The war was no longer about planets or power. It was about what it meant to feel. At first, they thought the planet had simply gone quiet. No distress call, no explosion. No signal, just silence. For the Dravik Dominion, silence was impossible. Every world under their rule pulsed with constant transmissions, orders, reports, surveillance. But Karnis 9, a colony of 12,000 soldiers and workers, had stopped speaking. Completely. On the Dravik homeworld, Supreme Warlord Zerath Kaul stared at the flickering hologram of the dead planet. His advisors whispered nervously. Communication systems may have failed, one suggested. Unlikely, another replied. Karnas 9 had 3 backup satellites. Then,
Sabotage?
Zerath's jaw tightened. No, this is something else. He turned toward the stars. Find out who silenced them. 3 weeks earlier, far beyond the Dominion's reach, Commander Elias Ward stood aboard the stealth ship Eclipse 1, watching a planet spin slowly below. Karnas 9. Through his visor, it looked peaceful. Too peaceful. The Dravik base glowed faintly beneath the thick clouds, their soldiers unaware of the tiny human drones drifting silently through their atmosphere. "Ready to deploy neural fog," said Lieutenant Harris beside him. Elias gave a small nod. Do it. The plan was simple and terrifying. No bombs, no plasma strikes. Just silence. Neural fog was a mist of microscopic AI particles designed to infiltrate technology and minds. It didn't kill. It didn't destroy. It simply disconnected. Within hours, every communication system on Karnas 9 began to fail. First, the soldiers lost radio. Then, the surveillance drones stopped reporting. Then, the lights flickered out one by one until the planet itself fell into darkness. Dravik soldiers stumbled through empty corridors, shouting into dead comms. "Base Command, do you read?" "Base Command?" No response. Panic spread. They tried to send ships for help, but the hangars wouldn't open. Their systems had locked themselves. And across the sky, one sentence began to appear, burned in red across every still-functioning screen. "We could have destroyed you. We chose not to." Inside the human command ship, Elias watched it unfold through satellite feed. His jaw clenched. "Any casualties?" "None, sir," Harris replied. "We made sure every system failure was non-lethal." Elias exhaled, the tension leaving him slowly. "They'll wake up tomorrow," he said, "and realize we never needed to kill them. We only needed to show them we could." The crew watched the dead planet below, silent, dark, humiliated. Back in the Dominion's capital, panic rippled through the military. Reports from Karnas 9 finally arrived. Images of powered-down bases, sleeping soldiers, melted weapons, and a message carved into a steel wall with a human hand. "Mercy is not weakness." Zerath Kal slammed his clawed fist on the control table. Sparks flew. "They play games with us," he roared. "They are warning you," whispered one of his old advisors. "Silence your tongue before I silence you," Kal snapped. But the old advisor didn't look afraid. He looked curious. Meanwhile, far away, Elias sat quietly in his quarters aboard Eclipse 1. Through the viewport, he could see Karnas 9 glowing faintly under the sun's reflection. It was strange, destroying nothing but still winning everything. He opened his log. "We call it the silent strike. No blood, no loss, just understanding. The enemy learned fear, and maybe something like shame." He paused, then added, "Mercy is our greatest weapon, because no one expects it." The next day, a transmission reached Eclipse 1. It wasn't from Earth. It was from the Dravik side. Harris ran to Elias. "Sir, you need to see this." The screen flickered, revealing the pale, scarred face of Krath Vel, the same Dravik prisoner Elias had captured weeks ago. "I've sent a message to my people," Krath said slowly. "A message they cannot ignore." Elias frowned. "What message?" The alien's expression was calm now, almost human. "That humanity doesn't conquer. It teaches." Back in the Dominion's control center, Zerath watched the captured commander's transmission repeat across every Dravik system. The humans could have ended us. They did not. They showed restraint. "That is true power." Fury burned in Zerath's veins. "Cut the broadcast." "We can't," said an officer. "It's spreading across the whole network." The warlord slammed his claws on the screen. "Then find that human commander. Bring me his head." On Eclipse 1, Elias received word that a massive Dravik fleet had left their homeworld, hundreds of warships heading toward human space. Harris looked worried. "Sir, they're coming for us." Elias stood slowly, eyes on the glowing dots moving across the holographic map. "Good," he said quietly. "Let them come." Harris blinked. "Sir?" Elias smiled faintly. "You can't teach someone who refuses to listen. Sometimes they have to come close enough to hear the truth." 3 days later, the human outposts near Saturn detected the incoming fleet. But when the first Dravik ship arrived, it didn't fire. It drifted, silent, engines dead, weapons powered off, then another. And another. Within hours, 50 Dravik ships floated quietly in human space. They sent a single message to Earth Command. We wish to understand your silence. In his ship's dark observation deck, Elias stood alone. He looked out at the stars and whispered, almost to himself, "You see, the loudest victory isn't won by shouting. It's won by making your enemies question their own noise." He turned off the comms, leaving the room in perfect quiet. Outside, the stars shimmered like tiny fires in a frozen sea, each one a reminder that sometimes the most powerful sound in the universe is silence. The Martian sky burned orange as the warship descended. No warning, no attack. Just a single Dravik cruiser entering Earth territory. Without weapons, without shields, without fear. Human defense systems locked on instantly. Lasers charged, railguns aligned. But before the first shot could fire, a voice came through the static. Rough, mechanical, but unmistakably calm. "Do not fire. I come alone." Inside Earth's orbital command center, alarms flashed red. General Harper turned toward the screen, disbelief in her voice. "Did he just say alone?" "Yes, ma'am," replied the officer. No energy readings, no life signs except one. The image cleared. The Dravik stood on the landing ramp, tall, scarred, his once golden armor scratched and burned. He held no weapon, only a small white flag made from the torn fabric of his own cloak. Commander Elias Ward watched the live feed silently. He had seen many Dravik, but never one like this, one who looked tired. Hours later, the alien stood in a secure hangar under Mars Base Command, surrounded by human soldiers. He bowed slightly. "My name is Varen Kaur. I seek audience with your leader." Elias stepped forward. "You're speaking to him." The alien's voice carried no arrogance, no anger. "Then I will speak the truth." He extended a small black cube, Dravik technology, pulsing with red light. "This contains the Dominion's next plan. You must listen carefully. They are preparing an invasion of Earth, not just war." "Erasure." The hangar fell silent. Elias's team exchanged tense glances. "How do we know this isn't a trap?" asked Lieutenant Harris. Varen looked up, eyes glinting faintly. "Because if it were, you'd already be dead." He placed the cube on the floor and stepped back. "Run your scans. You'll find no weapon, only truth." The cube projected a hologram, thousands of Dravik ships, coordinates of staging zones, and, most alarming of all, something new. A signal designed to corrupt human neural networks, to turn Earth's technology against itself. "God," whispered one of the scientists. "They want to overwrite us." Elias stared at the hologram, jaw tight. "How do we stop it?" Varen's expression darkened. "You can't stop it. You can only get ahead of it." For the next hours, the alien told his story. He had served the Dravik High Command for years. He had destroyed worlds, obeyed without question, believed in the Dominion's perfection. But after the Silent Planet event, after Carnis 9, something changed. "I saw the recordings," he said quietly. "Your fleet could have destroyed us, but you didn't. You left us alive. You showed mercy." He paused, eyes narrowing with emotion he wasn't used to feeling. "My people don't understand mercy, but I did. For the first time, I envied humans." Elias studied him carefully. "So you chose to defect?" Varen nodded. "The Dominion teaches that emotion is weakness. But I've seen how you fight, and not with logic, but with will. You love your world enough to die for it. That kind of strength cannot be calculated." He handed Elias another small device, transparent, crystalline. "What's this?" "A genetic file," Varen said. "Your species is changing." The room went still. Elias frowned. "What do you mean, changing?" Varen looked him straight in the eyes. "Exposure to our technology, to the neural fog, to our psychic fields. Your biology is adapting. Faster than any known species. You're becoming something new." Elias didn't speak. He simply stared at the projection. Human DNA glowing in shades of blue and gold. Patterns unknown to science. Enhanced reflexes. Heightened empathy. Emotional frequencies powerful enough to influence other minds, you're saying, Harris began. "Humans are evolving?" "Not evolving," Varen corrected softly. "Awakening. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Elias said quietly, "Why are you telling us this?" Varen's expression softened, almost human. "Because my people will come to destroy you for what you are becoming." And because, he hesitated, voice trembling with emotion. "Because I no longer want to be them." Elias met his gaze. "Then help us stop them." The alien's eyes glowed faintly, not with pride, but with purpose. "I will, but you must understand, they will not come as they did before. The next wave will carry no mercy." Hours later, in the dim light of the human war room, Elias stood with Varen beside him. Holograms of fleets, planets, and projected timelines filled the air. "Prepare the Ghost Fleet," Elias ordered. Harris blinked. "Sir, that fleet's not ready." "It doesn't need to be," Elias said. "We just need them to believe it is." Varen turned toward him, curiosity in his voice. "You plan to fight fear with fear?" Elias looked at the alien with a faint smile. "No, I plan to fight lies with truth." He turned to his team. "Send transmissions across the system, to every Dravic frequency we can reach." "What message, sir?" Elias's voice was calm, steady, and cold. "Tell them the truth about their defector." Within hours, the message spread through the stars. A human voice echoed across Dravic channels. "Elias wards. One of your own has chosen humanity. He came to us not as an enemy, but as proof that you've forgotten what it means to feel. You fear emotion. You fear mercy. And that fear will be your end." Across the Dominion, chaos erupted. Soldiers whispered. Officers hesitated. And in hidden places, among the quiet ones, something ancient began to stir. Emotion. The Dravic Council demanded answers. But before they could silence the rumors, the final transmission from Mars reached every world in their empire. "We do not seek war, but we will no longer hide. Humanity is awake." As the signal faded, Elias turned to Varen. The alien's eyes shimmered faintly, the first visible tear of his species in centuries. "What happens now?" Varen asked softly. Elias looked toward the red horizon of Mars. "Now?" he said, his voice low. "Now they'll come to erase us." He glanced at the alien beside him. "But they'll learn something no one ever told them before." He paused, the faintest hint of a smile on his lips. "You can't erase a species that refuses to die." The sky was not blue anymore. It glowed red, alive with fire and thunder. Over the cities of Earth, the Dravic fleet hung like black mountains blotting out the sun. Their engines hummed in perfect rhythm, cold and unfeeling, as thousands of ships formed a ring around the planet. From the ground, humanity watched its nightmare arrive. Children cried in the streets. Soldiers loaded their weapons in silence. And somewhere deep beneath the ruins of London, Commander Elias Ward stood in the war bunker, staring at the live feed from orbit. He didn't blink. He just whispered. They finally came. Hours earlier, the message from Mars had reached. "Every corner of the solar system, humanity, is awake," the Dravic heard. It too, and they answered with fire. Their first attack hit the Pacific Ocean. The blast lit up the sky brighter than sunrise. Waves taller than skyscrapers struck every coast. Then came the second wave. Energy strikes, targeted cities, power grids, communication towers. In minutes, the world fell dark. Earth burned. In the silence after the shock, Elias turned to his officers. "How many ships did we lose?" "Too many," said Harris, his face pale. "They took out Luna Base and half the orbital defenses." "We're blind," Elias nodded slowly. "Then we stop looking and start listening." He placed his hand on the console, closing his eyes. Across the network, faint signals pulsed, encrypted human frequencies that the Dravic couldn't jam. It was faint, broken, but it was still there. The human heartbeat. On the Dravic flagship, Supreme Warlord Zerath Kaul watched the burning world through the viewport. "Pathetic," he hissed. "They fight with passion, not reason. They should have surrendered." His advisor stepped forward carefully. "They won't, my lord. They never do." "Then erase them," Kaul ordered. "Every last one." But as the fleet prepared its next strike, strange things began to happen. Dravic ships started losing control. Minor systems first, then navigation, then weapons. Their sensors showed phantom fleets again, ghost signals. Thousands of human ships that didn't exist. Carl slammed his claws into the console. Not again! But this time, the humans weren't just hiding, they were fighting back. In the skies above Earth, hidden bases came alive. Old satellites, forgotten since the early space wars, reactivated. Autonomous defense AIs powered up after decades of silence. From the ruins of the Sahara, giant solar cannons rose from the sand, glowing like suns. From the ice of Antarctica, missiles streaked into the black clouds, and in every city that had fallen, survivors began to fight, not with fear but with fury. In New York, civilians dragged wounded soldiers out of burning rubble and passed rifles hand to hand. In Tokyo, engineers turned broken drones into mobile turrets. In Karachi, radio operators used old analog transmitters to connect the resistance across continents. Everywhere, humanity moved as one, chaotic, emotional, unstoppable. Elias's voice crackled through every surviving speaker. We are not fighting for victory. We're fighting for tomorrow. If you can hear this, you are the resistance. On Mars, Varen Kor, the Dravik defector, stood beside human technicians, helping them decode the enemy's transmissions. Their command network depends on psychic synchronization, he explained. If we disrupt that, their fleet loses coordination. How? Harris asked. By doing what you do best, Varen said quietly. Feel. He pointed to a chamber filled with linked human volunteers. They'll project their emotions through the neural fog. Fear, hope, anger, love. The Dravik can't process emotion. It overloads them. Elias stepped inside the chamber. Then let's make them feel everything. When the wave hit, it wasn't a weapon. It was a heartbeat, across orbit. Every human and every ship synced to the same rhythm. One pulse, one emotion. The signals struck the Dravik fleet like lightning. Suddenly, alien pilots felt something they had never felt before. Emotion, confusion, fear, empathy. Some ships powered down, others turned away, and a few switched sides. On the flagship, Warlord Cowell gripped his head, his mind burning from the psychic storm. What is this? What are they doing to us? His officer collapsed, trembling. They're not attacking, my lord. They're feeling. And we can't stop it. Cowell staggered toward the window. Outside, he saw human ships rising from the clouds, glowing faintly blue, not from fire, but from the same energy that had once belonged to the Dravik. They're adapting, he whispered in disbelief. And then realization struck him. They're becoming us. Back on Earth, the skies turned from red to gold. Dravik ships crashed into the oceans. The invasion had failed, not because humanity had stronger weapons, but because they fought with something the Dravik couldn't understand: connection. Elias stood on the roof of the shattered command tower, watching debris fall like shooting stars. Varen approached slowly, armor scorched but eyes bright. It's over, he said. Elias shook his head. No, it's beginning. Varen tilted his head. Beginning? Elias turned to him, his voice low but steady. They came to destroy our world. Instead, they forced us to evolve. They showed us what we're capable of. And now, he looked up at the quiet sky. Now humanity rises. Later that night, Earth's atmosphere shimmered faintly blue, a side effect of the awakening. For the first time in history, the human race stood united, not by fear, but by purpose. In his final report, Elias recorded only one line. They thought they came to end us. Instead, they made us more. And as the stars slowly returned to calm, one transmission spread across the galaxy, a warning, a promise, and a truth. You wanted war. You got evolution. You messed with humans. Bad move. The war was over. But the sky above Earth still glowed faint gold, like the world itself was remembering the fire that had almost ended it. Wreckage drifted in orbit, broken Dravik ships, shattered satellites, silent reminders of how close humanity had come to extinction. Yet on the surface there was no silence. There was laughter. There was rebuilding. And there was something new in the air, something no human could describe, but everyone could feel. The Awakening. In the ruins of the old United Nations Tower, Commander Elias Ward stood on the cracked balcony, wind tugging at his dark coat. Below him, cities once burned now flickered with lights again. "Earth breathes," he whispered. Behind him, a faint metallic voice answered. "It lives because of you." Elias turned. Varen Kor stood there, the Dravic defector who had once come to warn humanity. His armor was gone, replaced by a simple uniform bearing both human and alien symbols. Elias smiled faintly. "No, Varen. It lives because we finally remembered who we are." In the orbiting council station, a massive new alliance hub made. Of human steel and Dravic crystal, delegates from across the stars gathered. Not just humans and Dravic, but dozens of species who had been watching from the shadows, afraid to act. The air buzzed with tension. Some feared humanity. Some admired them. But all of them wanted to hear the message. When Elias stepped onto the stage, the chamber went silent. The lights dimmed. The stars outside the viewport reflected in his eyes. He looked calm, but his voice carried across every speaker, across every system, across the galaxy itself. 6 months ago, you came to erase us. You failed. Not because we had better weapons, but because we refused to surrender what makes us human. He paused, letting the words settle. We were called emotional, unstable, dangerous. You were right about the first two, but you were wrong about the third. A ripple of murmurs filled the chamber. Elias continued, voice rising like a wave. Our emotions do not make us weak. They make us alive. Compassion saved us when logic said we were doomed. Hope rebuilt our world when reason told us it was lost. And love. He glanced toward the crowd, where Varen stood among both humans and Dravic. Love turned enemies into allies. The room was silent again, but this time it was not fear. It was respect. Back on Earth, millions watched the speech through flickering screens powered by rebuilt grids. Farmers in the fields, miners under the mountains, children in the ruins of schools. Everywhere people listened to the voice that had guided them through the storm. To every species that believes emotion is weakness, Elias said, look at us. You burned our cities. We turned them into gardens. You tried to silence us. We answered with music. You brought death, and we brought rebirth. He lifted a small communicator, the same model that had once sent the first human signal into space. This is our final message to the galaxy. Every screen flickered. Every ship paused in orbit. Even the Dravic homeworld tuned in. The signal carried not just sound, it carried feeling. A heartbeat, slow, steady, human. Then came the words that would echo through history. We are not perfect. We fight. We bleed. We break. But we rise. Always. You wanted war. You taught us fear. You gave us pain. In return, we gave you something greater, understanding. We are humanity. And if you come for us again, remember, we are the species that survives everything. On the Dravic homeworld, Supreme Warlord Zerath Kaul stood before the transmission in silence. The light from the screen flickered across his scarred face. He had expected arrogance, threats, but what he saw instead was something far worse for his empire. Hope. Around him, Dravic soldiers stared, their skin patterns shifting faintly. Emotion, the very thing they were forbidden to feel, returning like a forgotten heartbeat. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Dominion trembled, not from fear of death, but from the awakening of their own hearts. Back on the council station, Elias finished his speech. He stepped down, and the room exploded in light. Thousands of beings standing, applauding, weeping, roaring. Beside him, Varen whispered, "You've done it. You changed them." Elias shook his head. "No, we did it. Together." He looked out at the stars beyond the glass wall. The war ended when we stopped trying to destroy each other and started trying to understand. Later that night, Elias stood alone in the viewing deck, the galaxy stretching endlessly before him. The hum of the station faded away as he pressed the final command on his console. A single transmission left the station, heading toward every corner of known space, a simple, repeating signal, not a warning, not a threat, a message. To whoever listens in the dark, we are here. Not as conquerors, not as victims, but as proof that kindness can outlast cruelty. On Earth, the aurora danced brighter than ever, painting the sky in waves of green and gold. Children pointed up, asking what it was. The elders smiled. "It's the universe," one said softly, finally listening back. Months later, explorers on distant worlds reported something strange. Across alien space, monuments began appearing, tall, simple towers of silver and glass. At the base of each one, written in countless languages, were 4 words that no one dared erase. "You messed with humans. Bad move."